In today's video, I will be discussing Jesus Christ is God, overwhelming eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimony is the bedrock of judicial systems worldwide, today and going back millennia. When considering eyewitness testimony, the key factors measured to assess the strength of the evidence include both the number and credibility of the witnesses. Here, we review the remarkable strength of the eyewitness evidence for Jesus Christ as God, from his miracles to his resurrection, including testimony from Jesus' 12 disciples and the Apostle Paul, plus thousands of highly credible modern-day near-death experience, NDE, testimonies by highly educated, successful professionals, which include direct encounters with Jesus. All these witnesses stood nothing worldly to gain by testifying, and many had much to lose, financially, reputationally, and even up to their own lives. Considering the number and credibility of the eyewitness testimony, it is clear that the case for Jesus Christ as God has been proven beyond any and all reasonable doubt. So, let's begin. First, what is eyewitness testimony? Eyewitness testimony is the bedrock of judicial systems, today and going back millennia. The number of witnesses is important. Both the Old and New Testaments support a minimum of 2 or 3 witnesses, and this is still preferred in modern courts today. And this is for obvious reasons. A single witness could say anything they wanted without challenge. Credibility is also important. Testimony by professionals should be weighted more heavily than testimony, for example, by convicts. Also, testimony by those who stand to lose financially or reputationally should be considered more heavily than testimony by those who stand to gain by testifying. So who are the principal eyewitnesses to Jesus Christ as God? Well, to begin with, let's talk about the 12 disciples, who of course include the first 11 apostles. These men were prosperous before following Jesus, and therefore they had much worldly to lose. Matthew was a tax collector. Peter, Andrew, James, and John were successful fishermen with their own boats. The 12 disciples dropped everything worldly to follow Jesus for 3 years, chronicling his myriad miracles. Would they do this for a liar? What miracles did the 12 disciples chronicle? Well, let's list the 37 commonly recognized miracles of Jesus. Jesus turns water into wine at the wedding in Cana. Jesus heals an official's son at Capernaum in Galilee. Jesus drives out an evil spirit from a man in Capernaum. Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law, sick with fever. Jesus heals many sick and oppressed at evening. First miraculous catch of fish on the lake of Gennesaret. Jesus cleanses a man with leprosy. Jesus heals a centurion's paralyzed servant in Capernaum. Jesus heals a paralytic who was let down from the roof. Jesus heals a man's withered hand on the Sabbath. Jesus raises a widow's son from the dead in Nain. Jesus calms a storm on the sea. Jesus casts demons into a herd of pigs. Jesus heals a woman in a crowd who had an issue of blood. Jesus raises Jairus' daughter back to life. Jesus heals 2 blind men. Jesus heals a man who was unable to speak. Jesus heals an invalid in Bethesda. Jesus feeds 5,000 men plus women and children. Jesus walks on water. Jesus heals many sick in Gennesaret as they touch his garment. Jesus heals a Gentile woman's demon-possessed daughter. Jesus heals a deaf and dumb man. Jesus feeds 4,000 men plus women and children. Jesus heals a blind man at Bethsaida. Jesus heals a man born blind. Jesus heals a boy with an unclean spirit. Jesus produces a miraculous temple tax in a fish's mouth. Jesus heals a blind, mute demoniac. Jesus heals a woman who had been crippled for 18 years. Jesus heals a man with dropsy on the Sabbath. Jesus cleanses 10 lepers on the way to Jerusalem. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead in Bethany. Jesus restores sight to Bartimaeus in Jericho. Jesus withers the fig tree on the road from Bethany. While Jesus is arrested, he heals a servant's severed ear. Second miraculous catch of fish at the Sea of Tiberias. The aforementioned list of miracles performed by Jesus while he walked the earth as a man is of course not exhaustive and does not include his resurrection. The first 11 apostles, after witnessing Jesus' resurrection firsthand, quit their businesses to dedicate their lives to writing and spreading the Gospels. 10 out of the 11 died for their faith in violent and painful ways. So much to lose. The 12th disciple, Judas Iscariot, who did not become an apostle, hanged himself in regret at betraying Jesus. Would a con man die for a fellow liar? Thus we can see that all 12 disciples were highly credible witnesses for Jesus Christ as God. Let's now move to the next principal eyewitness of Jesus Christ as God, and this would be Saul, who would become the Apostle Paul. Saul was wealthy and politically connected. He held a coveted Roman citizenship, and he earned a high income and reputation in political circles for killing Christians. Saul was struck with blinding light on the road to Damascus, wherein he encountered the resurrected Christ, who told the blinded Saul to go be healed by a Christian in Damascus and await word. Saul was guided into Damascus, sight restored by a Christian, as Jesus foretold. Seeing the truth, Saul gave up his past lucrative life to become the Apostle Paul, dedicating his life to writing and spreading the word, then ultimately being beheaded for his faith. So much to lose. The Apostle Paul was a highly credible witness for Jesus Christ as God. Next, let's cover a more modern group of eyewitnesses to Jesus Christ as God, and this would be modern near-death experiences. These are people who have passed away, either in hospital or otherwise in the presence of medical personnel, who were successfully resuscitated. And they often come back with details that would have been impossible to guess. For example, one woman accurately reported a 12-digit serial number that was on the top of a large piece of surgical equipment in the OR, which would have been a 1 in a trillion to guess. Other confirmed details include not only those near to the body, but oftentimes details far from the body. And many report meeting Jesus Christ in the afterlife. And this includes even atheists or those of a religion other than Christianity. Even highly educated, successful professionals often convert to Christianity after an NDE. Costs can include their career, For example, one man lost a tenure-track professorship and reputation. For example, loss of a spouse, family, and friends. Therefore, this group comprises thousands of highly credible witnesses to Jesus Christ as God. Let's now weigh the eyewitness testimony. First, we will consider the number of witnesses. 12 disciples, plus the Apostle Paul, plus thousands of modern-day NDE testimonies involving Jesus Christ. Let's look at the credibility of the witnesses. Few, if any, stood to gain financially or reputationally, and most took tremendous losses from careers, spouses, family, friends, to lives. Therefore, they collectively comprise overwhelming eyewitness testimony for Jesus Christ as God. In conclusion, let not your atheistic religion blind you. Atheists think they are rational, yet no truly rational jury should fail in its findings. The overwhelming number and credibility of the eyewitness testimony has proven our case beyond any and all reasonable doubt. The verdict is in: Jesus Christ is God. To drive these points home, we'll go to the scripture. We'll go to the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 20. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Next month, we're going to cover another topic. Try to cover about one topic a month, oftentimes from the scientific atheist perspective, as I was for several decades, as well as from the born-again Christian perspective, as thankfully I am now. And I hope you can join me next time. Thanks for watching Evidentiary Christianity. If you want to help support us via Bitcoin, that's the Bitcoin address right there. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.